in order to kind of set the stage, I've actually asked Stu Hall, who we've met a few times at various different industry days, stuff like that, to come up and help kick us off and talk through some of the challenges or things from his perspective that can help us get to better software delivery, which will be the entire theme of the workshop. So Stu, if you don't mind, I'll run slides for you. Let me know as we go.
Hi, my name is Stewart Hall. I'm the Technical Director in PMW 160 at PEOC4I. We are the program that puts networks on ships. And so I was asked to do this, and I thought, hey, this is great. What an honor, to have you. And by the way, thanks for the unicorns for coming here and chatting with us. This is a great opportunity for us. And then I got a little anxious about it because I was like, well, what am I going to tell a very august group of people? They should be teaching me type thing. What am I going to say? So I'm going to tell you 2 stories about me. So that's pretty easy. I can talk about me. By the way, this was Gen AI. I said make the unicorn look like a Sith. And I thought that's pretty cool, right?
Some great prompting you've done there.
Yeah. So some of you don't know. I think probably all of you don't know. I spent some time at DON CIO. I was the software modernization lead there. Probably more in name than anything. You put him in that puka. I honestly struggled in that position because a lot of it's policy making, and those of you who know Stu Hall, that's not his forte. But I realize it's necessary. But at the time, there was a great debate about factories for software. And during this time is when I first crossed paths with Brian Finster as he came in to brief one of our DoD software senior steering groups. And he said something that made great sense, which means we didn't follow it, is software factory is the wrong paradigm because factories produce hundreds, maybe thousands, maybe millions of the same thing. Software, we're always producing a new thing every time. And but I said all that to say this. We had a bunch of people running to get into a factory. I mean, literally run. You got to do DevOps. Let's run. Let's get it built. Get it. What factory do you use? Just use this factory. And there were a lot of names out there, and there was battles between, you should use this one. No, you should use that one. No, we can't use this one. We have to use this one. And it turned out to be a big deal. And none of the people that came to me and DON CIO knew where their production environment was. All they knew is they had to get into a factory. And so I'd ask them, I said, well, where is your production environment? And they would kind of look at me like, ¿por qué? And so I go, okay, no problem. Where will your users be when they access your application? Well, that's a good question. Well, no, that's the real question, right? And so I tried hard to try to wrestle with this. At the time, Mr. Paul Pluckett was the Army Cloud Lead, I believe. And he said something in one of these high-level steering meetings that made just so much sense to me. He says, the thing to do is start at your production environment and work back to your pipeline. What we're doing here is working our pipeline, and we have no way to get to production. And I was like, well, that's brilliant. I've been trying to say that for a while, but I never had somebody say it so concisely. And so I started to quote Paul. Doesn't like to be called Mr. Anything. And so I started quoting Paul as much as I could. And then I took also a lesson and met with some of the folks in Army Futures Command in Austin, Texas, who were doing great things with showing soldiers how to code and building a DevOps capability for soldiers, which was remarkable at the time and is still remarkable. And so at the time, I made great friends with Hannah Hunt Feldman, rather. Yep. And she said, well, we're bringing out this new idea called Path to Production Teams. And I go, that is a great idea. Hannah, can I steal that? She didn't say no, so I stole it. And so I started to try to do that at DON CIO, where I laid out, here are the factory possibilities. And if you want to be in Azure for NavFac, here's kind of your path to production. Go talk to these guys and get into that pipeline and work your way down. If you're trying to go to ships, go talk to these guys, because they're the way, and kind of a way of naturally aligning the conversations within the DON. But after a while, I got rooted to do something else. I left to go to PMW 160, and I don't think we really ever got that idea of path to production teams fully rooted into the culture. But it was so needed back then, and I would argue so needed now. All right, so a little bit about me, and you're wondering, wow, that was a shift, right? A little bit about me. I'm a woodworker by passion. In fact, right now in the back of my head, I'm trying to figure out how to finish 3 cabinets I need to finish for my kitchen. So that's when I have spare cycles in my brain, that's where I go. But I am a trained arts and crafts woodworker. What does that mean? So in the European 1800s or so, there was a great backlash against manufactured furniture. It was a huge threat to the carpentry industry. And so out of that came a movement started with the British arts and crafts, which came over to the American arts and crafts, actually followed all the way over to Japan. But it was characterized by how do we counteract this insidious blight on woodworking called manufactured furniture, right? And so they came up with kind of premises of what is part of the arts and crafts movement: natural materials, visible destruction. And I'm talking about visible construction. If you go and talk to these people, they will look at a piece of furniture and say things like, look, it's a tusk tenon. Oh, look, half-blind dovetails. They'll talk about the construction of the piece, and I'm as much of a sin of that of anybody else. Minimal ornamentation, done as much by hand as possible, skillful execution, durability. Does anybody see something interesting in all of those characteristics of the British arts and crafts movement? This is really hard because now I got to imagine what's in Stu Hall's head. I'll give you a hint. Think about it from the user side. Did you have an answer?
It's good software design.
Say again?
It's good software design.
Yeah. Anybody else notice anything about these? Maybe something missing.
It's very reliant on tools.
It is. It is. A lot of discussion of tools. Did anybody see anything missing here?
User experience.
Really, where's the user experience in this? Right? Because in that mindset, a piece of furniture is a piece of furniture to behold and observed and enjoyed and loved and passed down for generations. It is intrinsically valuable in itself. The user adapts to the piece of furniture. No kidding.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have to be installed anywhere. The table just sits there. Right? So this is the mindset of somebody like me going into all of my woodworking. What we think about is design and architecture. And I would argue 99% of the time when I'm talking to developer teams, this is where their head's at. Design and architecture. It's going to be containerized. Oh, we need a service mesh. So I got an amazing opportunity, and it's amusing, and I won't spend time with it because Drew wants me to hurry along here, to build kitchen cabinets for my wife at home. And I off and on have attended a college in San Marcos called Palmar College, where I have learned a lot of the arts and crafts techniques for building fine furniture. We call it fine woodworking. And so I had an opportunity to take a kitchen design class and then a kitchen production class the semester later. And I walk in, and let me set the stage for this college for you. Over here's this room with these really nice maple beech benches where hand tools like carvers and dovetail saws gather to do hand joinery. Over here is a lab with bending forms for making ukuleles and guitars and finely crafting ornate, these ornate wood inlays. And then over here is another lab for doing this very intricate box and carcass and cabinetry work. Over here is a lab just for building chairs, for those of you who understand Maloof or Windsor type chairs. These very delicate, wispy looking artistic chairs that are being made. And then over here is the cabinet lab with a CNC machine and a few other things. And the instructor says something to me, to all of us, and he says, forget everything you learned over there. None of it's going to apply. We're not going to use the same materials. We're not going to use the same techniques. We're not going to use anything you learned over there. And then, one by one, as we go through this discussion, he says, that's not fast enough for production. But aren't we going to dado that in? It's not fast enough for production. Aren't we going to, that's not fast enough for production. And I realized I stepped into a totally different world. Production is different than craftsmanship. And you can see me here struggling with 20 cabinets in my little garage, trying to figure out how to get to production in my garage, and it's really difficult. This machine cuts cutting the cabinets, simple, sheet of plywood on the machine, hit the vacuum. Takes you longer to square it than it does for the machine to cut it. 10 to 15 minutes, you have all the parts. The hardest part about that is labeling all the parts when they come off the machine so you know which cabinet they go to when you go to assemble them later, when I get to that stage over there. But it's worthwhile noting that I had to change the way I built cabinets in order to make that work. I couldn't use the same techniques for combining wood into a cabinet to make this automation work. The answer is not automation itself. Automation's a help here, but there's another element in here. So the difference here is Stu had to learn the 32 millimeter system that the Europeans had been using since World War II. So remember, the arts and crafts system was built, framework was built to counteract this insidious blight on woodworking called machine furniture. This was built because Europe had to rebuild after World War II. Limited materials, had to produce things fast. And so, for those of you every one of you have seen this system in use. Some of you have a cabinet in your garage, your house, somewhere that it's got the board. Usually it's what we call MDF, usually white on two sides. Could have another finish. Got a bunch of holes. Has everybody seen that? Right? But it's ingenious. And I could spend an hour talking about it, so I won't. But the way it's designed is there's big inline bores that just drill all the holes at one time in each side of the panel. Then you size the panels, but the way it's sized is, a typical cabinet, 29 to 30 inches high, 24 inches wide. Those panels are pre-sized. The holes are balanced in between, which means the space between the bottom hole and the space in the edge of the cabinet, the space between the top hole and the space of the cabinet is the same. So if you accidentally turn the panel this way, it doesn't matter. Turn it this way, doesn't matter. Very quick to assemble. You just grab the panel, you know which side the holes need to be on, and you're good to go. All the hardware goes into those same holes. Doesn't matter if the door opens this way, all the hardware goes into those same holes. In fact, you can extend the holes, as you've seen if you've put together things. You can put posts in there and make a shelf with those holes, do what you need to do. The 32 millimeter, nothing special about that. It was the optimum size at the time for gearing to be able to get a close row of holes. If they had different gearing, might have been 36 millimeter, might have been 30 millimeter. There's nothing organically important about 32 millimeters, just how it worked out, but it's a standard that stays there. So if you were to name somebody that's made probably the most use of that system, who would you name in our ecosystem out there? IKEA, or as I call them, IKEA. No, I'm on the recording, I shouldn't say that. Let me say this about IKEA. I don't like IKEA wood products, but they are very innovative in going into production. So innovative that they figured out some things that American cabinet makers haven't figured out how to do well. Think about it. There's no delivery team to take your cabinets that you buy from IKEA to your house. There's no install team. They made you all the delivery people and the install people, and you're happy to do it.
Until you start, at least.
The tools are simple. Everybody has a Phillips head screwdriver, or you will after you buy your cabinets. Everybody has a hammer, or you'll go get one. and they include that funky little wrench that after a while gets really hard to turn things. There's some pegs and some glue. There's nothing much more left in there. It's just simple to install that anybody can install it, build it, and put it in. A few hours later, after frustrating reading the finished languages, the thing, you got to put it in there, you're happy about it. Hey, I didn't have to wait days. You go to a regular furniture store nowadays, you buy anything, they sit you up there at the counter, you got to wait for it, so you got to set up a delivery time, which means you got to take off work, wait for a truck to just come, for a guy to just put it in my house. You're kidding me. They totally revolutionized the industry. And they weren't even trying to do that. But they figured out a way to get into production that's so innovative, nobody else has done anything like it except copy it. So why did I say all this? I'm going to say something maybe heretical now, so this is where Brian will go into LinkedIn later and go, God, Stu Hall said the most stupid thing. And I'm going to say something bombastic, and I'm going to say something because I want you to think a minute. I am tired of talking about DevOps. I am tired of talking about Agile because the way it's implemented, it has nothing to do with that. It's a bunch of people talking about what kind of joinery, what kind of wood. I've even been to a meeting where somebody said, well, you become Agile by following the Agile ceremonies. Are you kidding me? So my PM's there, and I'm like going, gotta be careful, gotta have my P's and Q's here. So I counteracted the best way I knew how. Agile is something you are, not something you do. You're not gonna go to a ceremony and become Agile. You have to become Agile because that's what you are. I don't want to hear about DevOps, I don't want to hear about Agile, I don't want to hear about containers, I don't want to hear about service mesh, I don't want to hear about any of that stuff. You know why? Because my customer doesn't give a crap about that. My customer does not care. If you're using a chair to sit on, you do not care that it used a wedge tenon to put the leg into the seat. You care not about that. What you care about is the chair comfortable? Is the chair the right height? Does the chair do what you need it to do? Is it durable? Can you move it around where you need it to be? Does it fit in its space? How you made it is not a thing my customer cares about. What my customer is struggling with is they are on a ship somewhere in the Pacific running 5 and dime watches. They are tired, they're exhausted, they have to stand watch, they have a collateral duty, they have another battle station, and on top of that, some officer or chief is yelling at them to fix something on the network. And they could care less if it's a Kubernetes cluster or whatever, they just need to get the network working. Forget everything we learned as devs. We need to become more like IKEA. We need to revolutionize and innovate path to production because that's where our warfighter needs. And I hope I said something that resonated. I hope I wasn't too bombastic. I hope I opened your thoughts a little bit. Thank you, everyone, for being so kind to me and allowing me to talk to you today. Yeah. Thank you, Drew, for this opportunity.
Yeah, of course. This was perfect, Stu. Thank you.